Ornithology.
What a fine achievement for Cheltenham Town.
Hello, and welcome to the third episode of Ornithology, the Robins Trust podcast. My name's Jamie. I'm a member of the board of the Robins Trust. And we put this podcast together to help shine a little light on how everything works inside the club and to just explore a few of the areas that are maybe not so well publicised and that people want to know about. If you're not a Robins Trust member and you'd like to join and get these episodes for free and get access to them as soon as they're released and past episodes, you can go to robinstrust.org/join. It costs £10 a year to be a member, or you can be an investor for £5 a month and provide a little bit more support. Thank you to everyone who's listened so far to the previous two episodes. The first with Paul Baker, talking about the ownership of the club, and the second with Dave Beasley, talking about how the board works. I've had some great feedback. Thank you for that. Some very kind comments. Let me know if there's other things you'd like to hear from us. Got 3 episodes to come after this, but always very happy to line some other things up. So let me know what you'd be interested in hearing. In this third episode, I'm talking to Murry Toms, who is another director at the club. He's got a bit of a different background to a lot of the other directors. So he's been very involved in things like crowdfunder. He's good on the social media side of things, just got some very interesting ideas. One of which was working on the charity shirt, which the club released for the Boxing Day fixture, the black and pink shirt that sold really quickly, sold incredibly well. So I wanted to talk to Murry about how a shirt is put together. We're going to have a new home shirt next season. So the process of that is ongoing, and he's talking to Area, not quite sure on that. My Italian is not good, but we'll work on it. I think a lot of people say Area, and I've also heard Area from people who know about kits. We had a bit of a chat about how both the one-off shirt is put together. There was a competition for that, and local school children or not local school children who are Cheltenham Town supporters entered it. And we had a talk about the standard process that happens every year and how stakeholders from across the club are included in that, including players and the manager and the requirements for that. We had a brief chat about goalkeeper shirts, which had not previously been readily available in the club shop. But I have seen subsequently that they have been made available. So people who'd contacted the Robins Trust asking us, and a couple of people had asked about whether goalkeeper shirts are available. They appear to be at the moment. So that's good. Perhaps that's something that came from my chat with Murry. Anyway, here is my chat with Murry about Cheltenham Town shirts. I know it's something that involves several people around the club, but I thought it would be good to speak to you as someone who's come in and has been behind launching the charity kit that is currently being worked on. This will probably go out after that's been announced, but you and I discussed before and thought that it would be a good idea to talk about maybe the two processes. So the process for that kind of one-off kit, and then we can talk about the longer run-in to home shirt that will be released for next season, going with our usual cycle of alternating between a home and an away kit each year. When does the planning process for a new shirt start, and how does that conversation go about? Obviously, when, in theory, a shirt is going to be due. How long out do the initial conversations start?
That process starts pretty much as soon as we're away from the most recent release. So we will start perhaps at the end of the summer, maybe moving into August. We'll start to have conversations about the next kit that we're to release the following summer. So it's pretty much a year cycle. And there are certain deadlines along the way that we work to. It's pretty helpful because time and resource is always tight at the club. So to be able to work over essentially 12 months is a sort of a blessing, I would say. It just gives us the opportunity to sort of make the most impact with what we want to do. It also means that by the time you are sort of sat there over Twitter at 10 o'clock on a Thursday to release it, you know that 12 months worth of hard work is ready to be unveiled to the world. And you pretty much within 20 seconds get told whether it's good or bad, sort of not necessarily diplomatic terms on social media. So it is a sort of fraught and stressful and thankless task because you can't please everybody. But it's a genuine privilege to be sort of like in the middle of that process, which lasts about 12 months.
But for the charity kit that you're working on at the moment, was that always in the diary that there was going to be one believe the club has a different sort of charity each year, something along those lines. There's not necessarily always a shirt attached to it, but is that something that's had to come together a bit more quickly?
No, that's so some of those one-off shirts, some of them are kind of reactive to situations that are happening. I think back to the British Lung Foundation. We turned that around pretty quickly based on a sort of an unfortunate kind of situation with a member of staff within the club. This one, a bit more planning has gone into it. And actually it was born out of a conversation with Myra, who are the principal partners, the front of shirt sponsor. And they are very much sort of committed to community engagement. So we were having a conversation about various little bits and pieces, again, what we would be doing over the course of the season. And their charity partner this year is the Child Poverty Action Group. And that kind of sparked a conversation about what we could do. I sort of suggested that I think we could do a sort of special shirt. And we sort of had a look at the calendar and sort of all the sort of various touch points kind of worked for us. That was the start of the conversation. Subsequently, we've had to have hours and hours and hours of conversations with all the different stakeholders, whether that be with the manager, because we need his and their players' buy-in to actually wear the shirt. That can be quite fraught because footballers like things in place the way they always are. And if you throw a different kit in on a certain game, it causes all sorts of issues sort of thing. So we have to sort of bear that in mind. So we got the buy-in from the football side, which is really good. And then you have to get the buy-in from the commercial team because you need to make sure that it doesn't overlap with anything they have planned. We have to speak to Myra to make sure that they're happy and comfortable with everything we're proposing. We need to speak to the charity to make sure they're sort of on board, which they were. They were really excited about being involved. Then you have to think about the supporters and what actually do we want to achieve as a club through this. We're very sort of minded to engage young supporters. We wanted to use our platform for good. I think the charity itself is quite an important one at this moment in time. There are all sorts of financial pressures and the kind of the stress of rising costs. I think it's an important cause to support right now. So, eventually we got to the starting line where we're like, okay, we can do this. And we decided to, as part of our kick-off meeting for the new home kit, at the start of, in August at some point, I sounded out Araya to see whether it would be possible to do a kit competition. And they were really, really excited about it, wanted to be part of that, to the point where they added some incentives to the prize itself, a big kit bag, loads of bits and pieces that schools can have. That got us to the start. And I think it's been a success so far. Unfortunately, sort of in the early stages, it was clouded by the sort of troubles on the pitch, but very, very sort of like behind the scenes and maybe not quite as overtly, we've been able to sort of speak to schools and groups and attract a lot of entries into the competition. And they're absolutely brilliant. I mean, the creativity in the young people in Cheltenham is genuinely impressive. So we will have to select a winner from those.
Regarding a one-off kit, and you said you spoke to the players, I'm kind of interested in, would it be important for them to then train in the kit? Because imagine you must get very used to seeing certain colours. Like the corner of your eye, you know where a pass is on because you know what colour you're aiming for. Is there any nervousness about that?
There can be a lot of nervousness. I mean, there are a lot of different types of players, I think, and there are a number of players that like to play in the kit they expect to play in. So it's not an easy ask to go to a manager and suggest changing something, especially when the pressure's on. The pressure is always on. I remember when we did the British Lung Foundation, speaking to Gary Johnson, he was happy to do it, but he wanted to make sure that the players trained in it all week, and they did. So they had 2 or 3 training sessions, I think, leading up to the Crewe Alexandra game, so that they got used to it. And then we brought the Holly Gazzard kit in, the white one, when Michael Duff was around, and he was equally sort of nervous. He also made sure that the players trained in it. And this time around, don't know what the plan is, but I'm sure it will be something similar. Yeah, it might seem insignificant, and you can be flippant, I think. Sometimes I can be flippant and go, it's only a kit, just swap it out. It's for a good cause. But, when you go down the training ground, that is a really difficult conversation to have. Fortunately, the 2 other times we've done it, we've won. Crewe, when we beat Leyton Orient. And I can't tell you the sense of relief after the game when those 2 things happened. Because had we lost, I think I would have genuinely been in for the hairdryer treatment, I think.
We talked about the timeline, but how does the initial discussion start? So let's say with the standard home kit, does someone from Araya turn up with a kind of, I don't know, a holdall full of different templates and lay them out on the ground and then you have a look at it? Or does the club provide the specifications beforehand and then it's drawn up that way? I mean, it's obviously, and this is worth saying, a very, very long relationship that the club have had with that particular shirt sponsor. So
yeah, it has been a long relationship. I think it's about 25, 26 years. I mean, I've been involved with it for about, I would say 5 or 6 years now, where I've been sort of directly involved in the kit design and launch. Yeah, the conversation begins in August time, pretty much as soon as the season starts. We'll invite Araya up to the club. We'll get together a team from our side. It generally involves, there's another member of the board, John Murphy. He's been involved with the relationship for a long time now. And we'll probably invite a couple of members of the commercial team too. And that will just be a kick-off meeting where we discuss, in the first instance, how things were going with the launch in the summer, of whether it be the away kit or the home kit. And then we will look forward in the next 12 months. And that's our opportunity to share, what we are doing over the next 12 months. I pretty much always try and work a year ahead. So I'll always start with right, next August, what is it we need to be doing at that point? What stories and do we want to be celebrating? So for example, next summer is the 25th anniversary of us getting promoted into the league, which is a pretty significant landmark for the club. I'm also conscious that we sort of celebrate that quite a lot too. So, for example, 5 years ago, we had a kit that was a nod to what we wore in that season. So we need to think differently about how we mark 25 years, because we can't just go down that road again. And like I say, I think that's been done quite a lot, that sort of thing. So we've got to try and think, we want to sort of celebrate and mark that event, but what do we want to do? Who are we working with, our partners? So, for example, Myra, do they have any plans? Again, that sort of community engagement piece. What do they want to be doing in a year? So you start to speak to all the different stakeholders around the club, and you kind of get a nose for kind of what we want to be doing next summer. And then we sort of bring it back 12 months to the kickoff meeting, and I'll give Araya some ideas about what we want to be doing. And there's no catalogue or manual at that point, or bag of shirts and what about this one and this one and this one. It's an ideas session, and we'll just it's just essentially a long conversation. It's always a really good one too, because that's where you begin to spark kind of solutions as well. So I guess at that point, Araya will go. We'll go back to the drawing board. We'll start working back into our plans a little bit, and then they will come back within about a month or 6 weeks with some initial ideas, just some initial sketches, just to get our creative juices flowing, I guess. And at that point, it becomes a back and forth process sort of thing. Then we begin to refine ideas and polish them up. And we tend to sort of try to reach an agreement by Christmas. So pretty much Christmas Eve every year, I submit the final design to Araya for the kit that's going to be launched the following summer. And by that point, we will have refined the kit to a point where we're quite happy in what we like, whether it's sort of like cosmetically, do we like it? Does it fit the theme that we want to launch it with? All of those things, we'll take it to show the manager and we'll show the players. Everyone will have their say on it. And then we will, submit that by Christmas. And then that process is complete in terms of the design process. And that means we can go away and have a couple of days off for Christmas and come back and begin to think about what we're going to be doing in the summer to launch it.
So you go to the players and the managers and the manager and the coaching staff, I guess, at that point, obviously before finalising it. Am I right in thinking that the past couple of managers, at least, have had strong feelings about, for example, dark away kits and it's been suggested to me there were strong feelings that we couldn't have the sort of, people often mention the Inter black and blue stripes, but apparently that's something that managers generally are not very happy with because a darker kit makes it more difficult for the players. And I assume there must be EFL rules as well, actually, about dark and light kits or something along those lines.
Yeah, there's definitely a sort of specification that's outlined by the EFL in terms of how big logos and sponsors can be. Certainly in terms of visual impairment and colour blindness, all of those things are sort of taken into account and set out. So that's we will sort of have that in front of us at the start of that kickoff meeting in August. We'll know what our parameters are for the design. And you're totally right. I mean, of course, managers have a strong opinion on what they should and shouldn't wear. when it comes to kits, everybody has a strong opinion. That's why it's such a fraught process, because there isn't anybody who doesn't have a very strong opinion about what the kit should be, shouldn't be. Should it have colours? Should it not have colours? Should it be stripes, pinstripes, plain, dark, as you say? There is a big demand for dark away kits, black away kits. I see that. And, I sort of quite like that as well. And I guess when it comes to the process, it's hard to get away from the fact that the manager is quite an important part of that. If he's not happy what he sees, then that's going to cause you an issue. But I have to say that I've never encountered any manager that's had a strong opinion on the kit whatsoever. I think we're kind of left to get on with it. I think what we've done in the last 5 or 6 years is start to really think about the design of the kit and how we launch it. I do think maybe prior to that, we probably weren't thinking as much in those terms. But I think now we know that the kit sort of sets the tone for all of our summer campaign work, and that is around season tickets as well as any other kind of commercial bits and pieces we're doing. So really is the sort of maybe the visual kind of image of what we're trying to do in the summer. So I think in that respect, the managers, they do have strong opinions, just like you or I do, or anybody else probably listening to this has a strong opinion on what the kit should be. But, as with anything with football, it's incredibly subjective, and you just have to try and navigate a way through all of the various stakeholders. From my point of view, the manager's perspective is no more or less important than anybody who comes to watch football matches at Cheltenham Town. Everyone's quite kind of equal, but you do have to sort of deal with those in sort of slightly different ways, I think, and you just have to back your own judgment a little bit too, which is probably the most petrifying bit. At that point where you're just about to launch it, you're about a quarter of an hour before you go, and you suddenly, all your confidence collapses and you think, I've got this all wrong. I'm 20 minutes away from being told in no uncertain terms that I've got it wrong. But you just have to kind of navigate a way through, back your judgment, and just back the quality of your work, really.
There rarely seems to be consensus, though. I particularly like the current home shirts. I just think it's just a nice blend, like the tone of red and everything like that. But I just so often shirt will come out that I either think is nice or it's not to my taste. And you will see people with completely the opposite view. And it seems to there's never been, as far as I can see, like a shirt that everyone has felt negatively about. If there's one that's a bit more challenging, I mean, the current away kit, that kind of mint colour, I like it myself. I think it's a bit different, and I like that shirt. But it doesn't sort of seem to split, and there's never been one where everyone says, oh, that's terrible. I mean, you look at the ones from the 90s, like that Forest away kit, the sort of famous vomit on the shoulder one. It's an absolute classic now. I'm sure the originals go for like 300 quid on classic football shirts.
Yeah, it's right. I think in a way, the 90s seem to be quite a sort of innovative time for kit design. Maybe we're all a bit too safe at the moment too. I mean, the Barnsley one, for example, this year was a bit of a sort of throwback. Again, it was a throwback. It took its inspiration from someone taking a chance back then. How many people are quite bold in what they release these days? I think there has to be a sort of natural conservatism about what you do. You have to kind of maybe balance your creative ideas with, again, all of the different stakeholders, of which at Cheltenham Town there are arguably 5, 6, 10,000 stakeholders. How bold can you go? Maybe one day we'll do something utterly that genuinely does sort of is genuinely hated by everyone. Kind of like the idea of doing that. Yeah, somebody along the way will stop me from doing that.
Well, you got to have a dream.
Yeah, well, maybe that's mine. Yeah, but it's very interesting, all of that sort of stuff. You'll never get a consensus on it. So I think I always find my sort of satisfaction in the work by knowing that spent 12 months really thinking about what we want to do, backing it up with sort of proper storytelling and some professional kind of launch. We've got a lot of people that help us with launches, and they're all around the world actually, and they're all brilliant at what they do. And we've got a really sort of big talent pool. And they're all really keen because as supporters, the kit is the most exciting thing to be involved in, especially if you're kind of creatively minded or you work in the creative industries. So we've got like a music producer in LA, Nigel. He's absolutely brilliant. He finds it a really useful exercise just to stay involved in. He finds it a way of sort of staying in touch because he's so disconnected in LA. But he brings something brilliant to it. And we've got like a designer, Sam, we're unbelievably lucky to have a chap to do the photography for us, and they all do it out of the love for the club. And I think sometimes the work reflects that. And I find satisfaction that we've gone through a really good creative process. Whether people like the kit or not, whether I get told in the bar that it's rubbish, can't control that. And it's very easy to be distracted by they don't like it or they don't like it. But I think you just have to have some confidence in what you do. And then I guess history will tell whether it becomes a cult classic or not. I don't know. We've all got our favourites, haven't we? So
yeah, and I guess you can never tell that when you launch it. That's if you knew that, then you'd always be on to make an absolute mint from it. I wanted to ask quickly about goalkeepers, because I feel what with the discussion around Murry Toms and everything with the England women's team, they get a bit neglected. So is the goalkeeper shirt designed, does the goalkeeper themselves just have an input in that more than the other players? And is it designed alongside each home or away kit, or there's a set of 3 different colours, for example, the goalkeeper can wear and they're just rotated?
I don't think too much about the goalkeeper shirt from a design perspective. I would love to, again, pick that up and do something a little bit adventurous one day. But one of the sort of key stakeholders in the whole thing is James Murphy, the kit man. So he obviously is at the coalface, if you like, and he knows those goalkeepers a lot better than me. So he will pretty much lead on what those goalkeeper tops look like based on his conversations with goalkeepers, which I don't have. So my focus is predominantly on that home shirt or the away shirt, and maybe some of the warm-up kit, which we're looking to sort of do a little bit of something with this time round as well. But goalkeepers don't really fall under my remit.
There's a question I had to ask related to that, because I think I saw this on social media or the Nest. So it'd be just good to ask someone from the club in part of my being on the Supporters Trust remit. Can people buy the goalkeepers kit? I think someone was looking for a sort of junior size as well and was asking about it.
I don't know the answer to that, if I'm quite honest with you. I don't think I've ever seen a goalkeeper shirt in the club shop.
I can't recall having done, to be honest. We're talking about the fact that we have had the same kit supplier for a very long time. So there's obviously a lot of debate amongst fans about that. And I can see the pros and cons either way. People think that we could have a brand that's seen in a different way, sort of Adidas's and Nikes, whatever. Feel like there are probably downsides with that. So how the contract, does it just keep rolling forever? Is there no break point and we just always go with them? Or is it something that's reviewed every now and again and other quotes are brought in? I'm just interested in whether it's just we have a comfortable relationship that we're happy with, or whether we think that they are providing the best options.
So I think the deal with Araya is 25, 26 years old, which is a lifetime. Takes us back to the non-league days. And I think it has its pros and cons. Like any relationship with any supplier, I think we get on very well with Araya. We can work very collaboratively with them. So some of the sort of one-off kits, for example, we're able to sort of turn around quite quickly and efficiently. The design process gives us a lot of freedom in what we can do, and that helps us ultimately with our marketing the following summer. And the deal stacks up. There's no doubt that we are not losing out on anything because we're with Araya. I'm also conscious that supporters, there is some criticism because we've had that long-standing relationship. I think some of the issues have been addressed recently in terms of quality of shirt, and there was some feedback about that, and I think it's been worked into. But I think it's got pros and cons like any other relationship. But I don't think that precludes us from looking at that on an annual basis and seeing what is available and making a correct commercial decision.
Is the board committed to the 2-year cycle of kits? As a trust member, I think we're quite supportive of it, especially in the current economic climate. I know a lot of clubs, even League Two clubs, that put 3 new shirts out a year.
So I think at the moment the club are committed to releasing one home shirt every 2 years, and then having an away shirt in the years between. So it's every 2 years on both fronts. That's written in the fans' charter that we won't be doing that each year because in the current cost of living crisis, people can't necessarily afford to buy 2 shirts a year. But it's definitely something I think the club should look at as well and explore. And even if it comes to the conclusion that it's not something we want to do because from a fan perspective or even some of our kind of thinking, then we won't do it. But I think it's all of those things, I think we always need to be having that discussion, even if we come to the conclusion that we're not going to do that. And that is the conversation we have each year.
I mean, just speaking personally, I think there are very much diminishing returns when you do a kit every year. I feel we've had far less good, nice design, classic sort of shirts that will live long in the memory now that clubs are churning out 2 or 3 every year, aside from the economics. And I also think because they come out one a year, I don't think that I would be surprised if the sales really stack up for it, because I think maybe there's a slight increase because it's over, you've doubled the amount you're producing. But I think people think, I don't like the shirt this year, I'll just wait till next year and see if it's a better one. I'm no longer really in the target market for selling football shirts.
I always like the mantra of less is more. And I do think that if we start knocking them out every 12 months, there is a danger, like you say, that you kind of diminish their value to a point. But it puts extra pressure on getting it right if you're going to do it every 2 years. I did have this discussion recently at the start of this season's discussion, and that was I'd love to do something sort of quite bold, but then I start to think, well, we'll have it for 2 years. It could quite easily lose its shelf life. So, for example, actually, like we did the 20th anniversary kit back in 17-18, so just towards the end of Johnson's time, and then Michael came to the club. I remember Gary didn't like that kit because he said it looked 20 years old. And I'm like, yeah, that's why it's designed that way, because it's to mark the anniversary. Michael then arrived at the club and was like, I recognise this kit. You played in it. This is like a nod to that team. And that was great. And I really liked what we did with that. But then we had to play for it for a second successive year. Then I think at that point, probably with hindsight, we should have just worn it for 1 year and then come up with something new again.
Yeah, for the next sort of 2 years, have it as a one-off.
You do have to think about that a little bit. You have to pare back your ambition a bit, because you think you could go with something bold and innovative that might have a sort of 6 to 9 month appeal. But then you have to think that you're going to wait for 2 years. So I think recently you've probably seen sort of a move towards that. Yeah, pros and cons, I guess. Interesting what everyone thinks. And everyone always tells me what they think of kits, but it would be good to sort of continue that discussion, I think. Like, hear what people want. What do people want? Do people want one every year?
I only have one more question, and that is, and I feel like I know what the answer might be here. Do the players wear exactly the same shirt as the one that's sold as a replica shirt in the shop?
I don't think so. I think there is a sort of an athlete's version, and I don't think it's one that I could necessarily squeeze into. So I think there are slightly different shirts, just in the way they're sort of cut and made, I believe. Don't hold me to that, but I think there are different versions. Ultimately, when it comes to the process, I'll probably, like I said, join a small committee and do the design stuff and think about the launch and the marketing bit and the themes and the story we want to tell. And then James Murphy, the kit man, will go away and he will make sure that all the orders are sorted for the players.
Thank you to Murry for joining me for that chat, and thank you for listening. We really, really appreciate all the members of the Robins Trust and the support that you give us. We only exist because of our members. And if there's anything you want to get in touch with us about, particularly for the new year, if you email us at info@robinstrust.org, or we're on social media variously as @robinstrust or @the Robins Trust, I think, or Instagram, because the other one was already taken. If you enjoy listening to podcasts, you're probably well aware of the Robins Report, a weekly podcast. But if you're not aware of it, here's the host, Owen Knight, to let you know a little bit more.
Hello, my name's Owen, and I'm the host of the Robins Report podcast. Catch us on your podcast platforms every Thursday or Friday as I dissect everything CTFC with guests every week. We're very proud to be CTFC's longest serving and only weekly podcast dedicated to the Robins. Hope to have you listening soon. Thanks for listening, and as always, up the town.
Thank you once again for listening. I'll be back next month with a chat with Gavin Crowe about the medical sides of the club. Take care. Enjoy your start to 2024. And this has been an Unsound production for the Robins Trust.